Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here with some more Gen 3 Ubers content. I have a very special guest with me here today. Ubers professional, fellow ADVPL champion, super epic Ampharos, inventor of lanterns, storied SPL gamer. How are you?
That's certainly a moniker for me. I'm doing all right. It's a nice evening, and thanks for having me on, man.
That's great. He recently posted his VR in the Discord, so I thought I'd invite him on the channel to explain his picks. I'm not quite as experienced in Ubers as he is, so get some insight into the meta from a top level competitor. I've gone ahead and added in his entire D tier here because there's a lot of Pokemon here. I don't want to individually go through everyone, but I've got some questions, Mr. Ampharos.
All right, that's why I'm here.
I'm very curious about what Wailord does in Ubers. Can you enlighten me?
Okay, so you know what it doesn't owe you, right? It clicks Water Move and it has Boom.
Yeah, I've used it myself. It's fun.
So if you look at a typical Rain offense, the Ogre, Lottie, Lax, Meta, DOA, and then a last structure. Nothing actually wants to take the water move, so you get a very high priority boom onto either Lottie or Ogre most of the time. And even if they switch meta on boom, then that's chip for your likely DOA in the back. So it's
That's brilliant.
just an offense guy.
It's a similar idea to it in OU where the boom threatens the Blissey switch in, you're threatening the Latios switch in, the Kyogre switch in, with the threat of boom, and Water Spout threatens just about everything else.
Yep.
That's cool. Now, I'm curious. I've always thought of Shedinja as like a pretty good Pokemon in Gen 3 Ubers. I've been used it myself, and I think it's a bit niche, but D tier is quite low. I feel like. Do you think it's that bad?
That's one of my many hot takes I have about this metagame. So my issue with Shedinja is that if your opponent is running a Pursuiter that isn't Metagross, it dies instantly. If your opponent is running Spikes plus Gengar, it is basically worthless. If your opponent has speed creeping Metagross to creep Shedinja, this is a real thing, by the way. I've done this in tour game.
Oh yeah.
Then it is also completely worthless. Like if you get any of those not matchups where you're walling a Kyogre and a Latios for the whole game, there's no spikes. It is pretty good in those matchups, but I find that those are really hard to like encounter and really like properly fish. Like a lot of these Pokemon are matchup fishes, to be frank, in the D tier. Shedinja is probably one of the most effective, but also one of the most risky. Like it's a matchup fish that if it works, it's obviously incredible, but it has a very high chance of not really working. So that's why I put it that way.
That's a good point. I mean, most things run Pursuit most teams just to cover Deoxys attack. And Spikes is common too, so it's probably pretty hard to support Shedinja. You probably run a lot of support for it on the teams if you use it, like you probably run a spinner.
Yeah, like Starmie isn't seen here. Oh no, Starmie is here, but Starmie is like a Shedinja partner. That's basically the only time I ever see it.
Well, there you go. That's why Starmie's here, folks.
It's a much more consistent spinner, and it has Psychic for Gengar. However, as in OU, you have all the spin mind games. Starmie actually threatening stuff can be a little bit difficult. So that's why Starmie's not great either.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, and Latios can also just run HP Fire. Now your Shedinja doesn't check it anymore.
Yeah. Not the world's least common option on Latios. I'm curious about Lantern. I know you're a Lantern enthusiast, but is it really an Uber's level Pokemon? That's eyebrow raising to me. What's
So,
Latios do?
so here's the misconception, right? It's not actually a Kyogre answer. You will get murdered by CM Ogre um, really fast. It's actually a Bolt Beam Latios answer. Um, like Bolt Beam Recover Refresh. It switches into that and walls it for the entire game. Um,
That's cool.
it doesn't really do a whole lot outside of that, but finding walls that are not Wob trappable, who can like actually deal with Latias like that is very helpful.
What does it do? Like Thunder Wave it or something?
T-Wave it, Toxic it, kind of just sit there and look cute, It can't, it's kind of just like a stalemate. Preventing it from clicking Thunder is often enough to, do any real damage to your team. That's the big part, is just blocking Thunder. And of course, it's also like a pseudo Kyogre answer, but it's not your main one. It can deal with Kyogre, but it still takes a ton of damage from rain boosted water moves.
If you're predicting that they're gonna Thunder, it's probably a decent pivot. And Thunder generally common probably comes in on some other stuff too.
It's pretty terrible in the Sun because you don't do damage to any of the mons on the Sun.
Oh yeah. Except maybe like Latios, which they probably have, but
Yeah.
I love that though. Lantern going strong as a Bolt Beam counter, even in Ubis.
If your opponent brings Regice, that's not really a Pokemon, but if they bring Regice, Omastar, like all the Swift Swimmers, it's good, really good at answering those.
Cool. Very epic. Alright, speaking of Regice, why don't we move on to the C tier? I know there's a few mons here, but that's okay. I was speaking with you before we started recording about Altaria, which I was like, what the hell does this thing do? And it turns out that this thing has access to Pursuit, which is a good move in the metagame. It's able to Pursuit trap a Deoxys attack if they don't have Ice Beam, which these days is pretty common. I think most Deoxys attacks are like physical sets.
Yes. The two moves that you need to be careful of are Ice Beam and Rock Slide. Both are not that common. Most like Sun ones will be Fire Punch in the fourth slot, like Super Power, Shadow Ball, E-Speed, Fire Punch, and you will wall that set all day, every day. And even if you get burned, you have Natural Cure Rest. But what I also talked to you about is, other than checking and Pursuit trapping DOA, it has really weird defensive utility. With Bulk Investment, it can check Ho-Oh really well.
Wow,
and
yeah.
Because it doesn't take damage from any of its moves, and you just Natural Cure, PP stall it. Heracross is a menace to society, and Altaria can eat a Megahorn pretty well. It can't really eat a Rock Slide too well, but the only thing that really can is Salamence, which is also in this tier. What else does it do? Check Snorlax. It's not a Lax counter by any means, but it's a Snorlax check. They all run B-Slam and like fire moves, and you will absolutely absorb those. Even Brave B-Slam is a 4-hit KO, which is pretty good. If you run Roar with Spike support, you can really like neutralize their Snorlax or force it to explode. And if they're booming on your Altaria, that's likely a very valuable trade.
Yeah, that's great for you. I guess unless they have Curse, you 100% stonewall them. Yeah, that's awesome roll compression right there. You're a Heracross check, Snorlax semi-check, and a Deoxys Pursuit Trapper. That's awesome. So the first legendary level Pokemon all the way down in the depths. We've got Deoxys Speed. You really think it's that terrible?
So I really tried to use this thing. I really have. So the most common space you'll see it is in the lead slot as a spiker. But what I thought long and hard about is what if I just used a DOD instead, so that I didn't instantly die to Kyogre. And sure enough, you can just do that.
Yeah.
As an HO lead, it is kind of just worse than Kyogre, or not Kyogre, DOD. The one thing it does have, I was thinking about this on the car ride to work today, it threatens Heracross a lot better. However, I would raise you that you can just run special attack investment and Psycho Boost on DOD, and it will do the exact same thing. So it doesn't really threaten Hera a whole lot more. The other set DOS can run is a DOA Pursuiter, because it outspeeds all forms of DOA, and 316 or 317 special attack Pursuit OHKOs it, even on stand. So it is a very secure DOA trapper that can only die to being crit by E-Speed. Now, that sounds really nice until you realize that you're using a Pokemon that, if they don't have a DOA, is basically completely worthless.
Yeah. Compare that to like Metagross, which does a lot more.
Metagross does a lot more. It has Explosion, a real defensive typing and profile. Or like even Skarmory, who's a really bad pursuiter, does stuff. It's a lax check, a Groudon check, it's a physical check. Who is calling me? Please stop. Sorry.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
basically the speed in this format, not that valuable.
Yeah, the biggest thing is that using a DOS means you can't have your own DOA.
Ah, true. I do forget about that sometimes. You can only have one form of Deoxys.
So, dude, I'd love to have two. DOD DOA would be so
That
nice.
would be crazy. So is Metacam sort of like a mini like a similar idea to Heracross, just a banned attacker? That's
actually, Endure Reversal.
Oh, true. Yeah.
Is what you use. The difference with Hera is that it has Shadow Ball, which is much better at dealing with Lottie because it doesn't miss. And Reversal also hits way harder. Like, I think Hera Reversal isn't that great versus Groudon, I think. But Metacham hits like a truck. As a kind of neat speed tier, and S-Ball is like really good just as a click. The one real main issue I have is that when you're not down in reversal range, if you're using the reversal set, you don't really have good mid-game moves. But as an end gamer, it's only really stopped by status and priority, which most end gamers are. But it's very, very potent, and teams that like to stack multiple of these, like I know Hazup has used Endure Hera and Endure Medi on the same team. You play one early, force a priority user to answer you, and then you just pursuit it early, and then your other one should roam free.
That's a great idea, yeah. I imagine Megahorn is a lot more threatening before you go off the berry, and then also even afterwards, like just being able to smack Latios and stuff.
But yeah, Hera has much more mid-game utility, both by having like an actual special defense stat, and Mega Horn being a really good neutral click.
Yeah. I got destroyed by a banned Heracross in my own tournament. That thing is a menace in this format, man. Nothing
It was
switches
Spadef
into
Hair,
it.
right?
Oh yeah, it had a bit of Spadef actually. Lived my thunder.
Yeah, because Latios Thunder did 56.
Man. I calced it with the OU set. So I was like, oh, I'm good here. And
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I guess,
Spadef
of course,
Hair
he runs
is
Spadef
crazy.
in such a format. Anyway, we're not talking about Heracross. We're in the C tier, folks. What does Golem do, Mr. Ampharos? That's a weird one.
So, yeah, Golem, you also notice Armaldo and Regirock here. All the rock types basically belong here, except for T-Tar. So, Steels are not actually the best lax checks in the tier, because they all run fire moves, or rather, all Sun Laxes run fire moves. EQ Lax is not that common, and all of the rocks that are here don't take much damage from these careful earthquakes. So, like, even getting hit on switch in by Lax isn't too bad. Golem, what it does specifically is it has stab EQ for Metagross. It has slightly stronger explosion.
It's got rapid spin, doesn't it? It's got rapid spin, doesn't it?
No, that's a Gen 2 event move.
Oh,
If it got rapid spin, it would be like a B tier mon. I wish it got that. It has Boom, Stab EQ, Rock Blast, and Fire Blast for Fori and Skarm.
Oh yeah, cool. I imagine it'd be pretty good into like Hoa, right? Coming against Hoa.
Oh, yeah, it's pretty good into Hoa. Those don't even run Earthquake all the time, so barring a Sacred Fire Burn, you just kind of check it. It's kind of bad into Rain, but even versus Rain, what makes Mons like Golem so good is that you have Boom. Like, you're never useless. You're always going to check Snorlax, and you always have Boom.
I like the idea. Sounds great. And yeah, Regirock and Armaldo are similar. Armaldo neutral to ground, which is a bit of a advantage, I think. And it also, I think, has access to knock off and spin. Probably does stuff.
Yeah.
You can knock off like a Latios Soldu, maybe?
Yes, the Armaldo set that I use is the same one that's used in OU. It's Harden, Knock Off, Rest, and well, I use Rock Blast instead of Seismic Toss for Subpataya, DOA, and Ho-Oh.
Ah, cool.
It's just like the best Lax answer in the game because it's crit immune, and Harden means that it can't ever do anything to you. So you PP stall it, you knock off its lefties, which makes it way worse against Latias. And it just flails mindlessly into you. You don't even get 3-8 KO'd by Fire Blast. And, of course, crits aren't a risk, because Shell Armor is an excellent ability.
That's very cool. That must be like a stall team type pick.
Yeah, so what makes it a particularly strong pick on stall, and I've brought this twice in tour games, is that stall really cannot beat Last Mon, Curse, Rest, Lax, because they don't really have mons that do damage. If your Groudon goes down, you just lose, and you can't really stop it. So if they Last Mon, Lax, otherwise, it's very... It's not actually possible for you to deal with. Armaldo gives stall that out versus Last Mon, Curse, Rest, Lax, where it just sits there, PP stalls it, and you watch your opponent flail into your Armaldo for the rest of the game. Yeah. In the 2 games I brought it like in-gamed versus Sun offense, like Groudon went down, and then it was just Armaldo hardened to +4, and then my opponent just couldn't kill it anymore. The crit immunity, I cannot overstate just how awesome that is.
Yeah, for those long-term situations.
Mm-hmm.
No threat.
Because it's so scary on stall when you're eating hit after hit after hit after hit, and Armaldo just doesn't care.
That's an awesome pick. There's some creative stuff in this format, folks. I think that's a really cool little one. I think we can move on to the B- tier.
What do you think goes here? What did I put? Let me look it up again.
I think you put a Deoxys defense.
My first pick was Dio-N for that.
Oh, Deoxys neutral. Whoops.
Yeah, but you can put whatever you want. This is your thing.
Well, I'm not too well versed in the format yet to have super strong opinions about this. I'm still learning, but yeah, Deoxys neutral is a cool one to talk about. I actually used it in the tournament and won a game with it. I saw you talking about it in Discord, and I was like, that's a cool idea. Basically, folks, it's like Deoxys attack, but it's got a little bit more bulk, a slight amount more bulk, so it doesn't die to like a literal slat breeze. You can live Pursuit from Metagross, and I believe extreme speed from enemy Deoxys attack. And those are the two important things.
Metagross on switching out, by the way. Like the extra bulk you get is just enough to live it on switch out. I think maybe even with the spike, don't quote me. But yeah, the little extra bulk you get is super handy. It's obviously not fantastic. That's why it's down all the way here. But it's a pretty good little Pokemon. It has very good mid-game utility. It allows you to play a Deoxys a little bit more aggressive because you aren't fearful of losing all of your speed control on like turn 6.
Yeah, there's not as much of a looming threat of getting trapped, so you can kind of go nuts with it. You do sacrifice like 30 stats in your offensives, but you do quite a lot of damage anyway. You're still 150 base attack and special attack. I think it's still pretty damn powerful. And we've got one of Jim Cool's favorite Pokemon here, Glalie. Probably does similar stuff to what it does in OU, I imagine. Just makes spikes quickly.
It's an HO lead. The thing that this has over other HO leads is 284 speed for Smeargle, and Taunt Boom. So it beats Smeargle lead, thanks to being faster Taunt, and it has it's also an Ice type, which is actually notable because it forces out Groudon. It does like 30% to Latios, and it has a strong enough boom that Kyogre doesn't really want to do too much with it. I'm pretty sure you can EV to live a Surf with Glalie. So you can like set a spike, get set into Salac, and then blow up. So yeah, Glalie, basically the same thing as an OU.
Very cool.
Very cool.
I like the ice typing is like slippery. Nothing quite one hits it. It lives a lot of key stuff. Just enough to make it spikes and do its job for its teammates. I should try that in Ubers. I think I'd like it. We've got Celebi here. Pretty high, actually, than what I would think. What's Celebi do? Does it do CM pass? Is BP even legal?
Yes, you can have one baton passer per team.
Okay.
So Celebi is a CM passer, yeah. It also has a leech defensive set. It checks EQ slide T-Wave Dawn. It checks it kind of checks meta, it kind of checks lax, It's not great at either, but it can. It checks Thunder, D-Claw, Lottie. Not great because it's still Lottie, but it does that. And Leech Seed, because grass types don't exist, is extremely clickable. So that's good. Heal Bell's great, obviously. Perish Song for stall teams. BP on stall's even good, just to have that really cool security blanket. And CM Pass is an offense facilitator, so yeah, that's Celebi.
You do CM pass on like a rain thing?
You can pass CMs to Kyogre, and then your opponent is suddenly much more terrified.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Sorry about that. My brother was knocking on my door.
All good. All good.
I'm a YouTuber. All right. As I was saying, next up we've got Cloyster. Can Cloyster do stuff? This one's surprising to me.
Cloyster has a lot of weird things it can do. So it can run a similar idea to Glalie as an HO lead. Of course, it's Thunder Week, so it's not as good in that position. But as a mid gamer, it gets spikes and spin, which means it is the best spiker at dealing with Fori. And that's very important. It's good at booming on Kyogre. It has good enough bulk that it's a good lax check. It can check Hera because it's fat. It can check Ray because it's fat. It can check CB Lugia. It can check CB Ho, although you really don't want to take a Sacred Fire. It's actually a pretty decent Groudon check. 180 defense really goes a long way.
Yeah, that's true. You're always like the most common physical mons all have rock moves, but in Uber's not really, right? Like,
yeah,
you actually can tank most physical hits that are out there pretty nicely.
The one set that's been run into me is Spikes, Spin, HP Fire, Explosion, which is pretty interesting. Just opting for no Beam, but HP Fire makes you much better at like staying in and dealing with Fori in meta. So there's that. I imagine you could run Beam, definitely could.
Yes.
And if you want to go for that weird HO lead route, you can. You just have to be careful of Thunder Para.
That seems a bit dangerous compared to like Glalie. There's a lot of stuff that leaves that has Thunder.
But yeah, Glalie and Smeargle is much more safer. As is DoD.
Yeah. Up next we've got Omastar, who's one of my favorite Pokemon to use in the format. Swift Swim Sweeper. Probably in a reasonable position here at B-, I suppose. I mean, I think it's quite good though.
This is another one of my hot takes. I'm not really hot on like any of the Weathermons.
Oh yeah.
I have problems with Omastar. Those being Latias, Ogre, and Groudon. It has the problem of most Weathermons or all Rain Weathermons lose to Kyogre, which sucks. Even Ludicolo gets 1v1 by sub CM Kyogre. Like, it's not looking too good for that guy. It has Thief, which gives it a big boost versus Latias. Thiefing Lati and Ogre is really nice. It's easily, I think, one of the best weather abusers in the tier. Rain boosted Hydro off of that Spatak stat. Being a rock type makes it a really good lax check. But if you can't maintain that really solid weather control, then you're just gonna be like not great into later stages of the game.
Fair enough, yeah.
It's still like a pretty solid mon. Like checking lax and putting out a bunch of pressure is still good, and Thief is really cool.
I think it's pretty good late game cleaner. You gotta. There are those things that check it that are all pretty common. The Kyogre, Latios. Thief is a good option, yeah. Cripple those things that come in on it. I think Spikes is a similar idea. Click a Spike when a Kyogre comes in. Make some permanent progress. I think it's a good Pokemon, but yeah, it does have those issues for sure. And the Weather War can F it up. And you've actually got, up here in the BT, you've ranked Qwilfish higher than Omastar. Do you think Qwilfish is like the best? I suppose you've got a higher Swift Swimmer, but
Gonna be honest, I've never used this thing.
oh really?
I don't think it's that great, but it is Spikes and Boom. And you know what? That's good.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what tier you're playing. It has Spikes. It has Boom. It can check Sun Metagross. You know what? It booms well on most things. It has Spikes and Destiny Bond. Good enough for me. It also gets the best move in the game, Thunder Wave, so it's automatically viable.
Yeah, I just assumed it was like a Swift Swim offensive mon, but yeah, you could just go like Spikes and some support moves. And boom. That's pretty good.
I've seen like SD. I've never seen it work, but I've seen SD.
That's pretty cool.
So yeah, this is kind of a pick for, I don't want to look like a total moron, but I think you could definitely put Omastar over Qwilfish. I think they're both pretty solid.
Yeah. I agree with you though. Anything with Spikes and Boom is at least got to be pretty solid. You've ranked a Ninjask in the B tier, and it's a frightening prospect. It's higher than it is in OU, in my opinion, and I don't like this guy. But is the Ninjask pass stuff a thing in this format? I haven't seen it yet.
It's really fishy, but in all due respect, it is an effective fish. I think me putting it in B, I would gladly throw it in D tier, but I think B is honest. It hasn't lost a tour game.
Oh no!
Like this year, it's been in 4 or 5. It's won all of them. People are also not very experienced at playing around Quick Pass, like just set speed and pass to like SD Dawn. Like a lot of people really aren't prepared for that sort of stuff. So it catches a lot of people off guard. And there's some really nasty recipients. Granted, it has extremely low mid-game utility outside of passing. Like at doing anything, at having a defensive profile, it sucks.
Yeah, just all in on passing some speed. That's what it does.
Yeah. It's like a different form of HO. I hate it. I want Speed Pass gone, but for the time being, he's there. And you kind of have to respect him.
Let's use it in my tournament and get it banned. Let's get the whole entire world's eyeballs on this thing. No. Do they run like? Is it like in OU where you run a taunt guy and like a fast roar to keep the chain going?
Full pass you can't really do, because you're limited to 1 BP. Instead, you just run like Subleechy, You sub down to your Lychee Berry. Then you threaten like Latios with +1 Silver Wind, and if you happen to get the boost, you happen to get the boost.
Oh, geez.
But
If you get the Silver Wind.
yeah, but otherwise you're passing speed and +1 attack to a bunch of scary mons like Groudon and Metagross and like even Rayquaza or DOA. Like there's a bunch of mons that are really nasty.
Yeah, there's a lot more abusers of the speed in Ubers, I imagine, than in OU. In OU, you've got like Marowak, maybe Heracross, stuff like that. In this, even just Groudon, meta staple already. Not hard to fit in
Yeah,
the team. Now it's fast. That's
yeah.
frightening.
Even passing just speed to Kyogre is terrifying. You
Yeah.
need Latios to outspeed it, and when it doesn't, it's kind of like, now what
Yeah,
do
you
I
can
do?
CM up and it's in trouble. Let's move on from that frightening conversation. Up next, we've got Tyranitar, which I have seen in a couple of replays from I think someone used it in the tournament. I can
Um,
see it being good. I mean, sand is always good to some extent, and probably a lax check, but what else can it do?
so T-Tar is a weird one. As you said, sand, etc. It is by far um, one of the best lax checks just by blocking lefties. Um, the really, really big thing about T-Tar is we've talked about like Salic Metacham, Salic Heracross. Sand shuts those strategies down completely.
Yeah.
Sunpataya DOA can't work with this in the tier. If your opponent has a T-Tar, any sub-related strategies get like significantly neutered. Or Endure just doesn't work anymore. The thing it struggles most with is by far Groudon. It can't really do meaningful damage to Spidef Groudon. You can Toxic it, but if they have aromatherapy, then you aren't making much progress. You can CB Double Edge it or CB Focus Punch it, and that's pretty good damage. But then you have to switch out. It's just really awkward into offense. If you can remove Groudon, though, it cleaves like Sunstall. Just straight up sweeps it, like on the spot.
Yeah, they
Like the
got no weather
Ho-Oh,
clear anymore. And then
the Ho-Oh, Lugia, Blissey, Forretress, and like Alast. Those all just fold instantly to T-Tar if Groudon goes down. So it has that sort of potency. And most offense teams, or really just most teams in general, outside of the Weathermon, Groudon, and Kyogre, really not too safe against T-Tar coverage. So offensively, it's pretty threatening past the two guys. And Sand is obviously great. I think I hit on everything there. Pursuit doesn't exist. It sucks.
yeah, most Deoxys would run superpower, right?
Yeah, almost all of them.
Yeah.
99.9.
What a shame, but yeah, cool mon. I think I'll try building with it myself. Up next is Exeggutor, which I think I recall looking at a VR and it was lower than this, or wasn't as as good of a weather abuser as the Swift Swim fellas.
Yeah.
I think most people have that opinion, and it only achieves like 360 speed or something like that in the sun. That's still pretty good, but it doesn't actually outspeed like Deoxys attack and a lot of key things.
Well, if you run max speed, it outspeeds everything. It's I
Oh,
think it's
okay.
Omastar stat. Yeah, it's Omastar speed stat. The real problem with Egg is Kyogre, because you can't really damage Kyogre outside of exploding on it. Which booming Ogre for a Sun offense is obviously great, but it's kind of it's the weird situation like you have with Fizz-Off, where the boomers on Fizz-Off are like enabling for themselves, but they're exploding. Do you know what I'm saying? Like Exeggutor booming Latios makes Exeggutor's life easier, but now Exeggutor is dead. Um,
Yeah.
so it has that problem a little bit, but it has some really cool stuff that it can do. In the Sun offense, Solar Beam, Fire, Boom, Sleep is super good. Thiefing, Latios is, as we talked about before with Omastar, really strong. I think this is by far the best Sun abuser.
Yeah.
The other ones don't have stats or like sleep moves or really anything of note. Like Shiftry gets Boom, so it doesn't totally suck. Victory Bell gets walled by Metagross, or like walled by any number of things. Loses to Kyogre. Whereas this just has really everything you want. Yeah, he's a cool guy. I like him.
And Jumpluff gets Sleep, but it doesn't really have offensive presence at all. You can leech stuff, I guess.
Jumpluff is just Leech Seed over and over again.
Yeah. Cool. I'll try it, Exeggutor. I've been sleeping on it, I think.
Yeah, he's strong.
Up next, you've placed Aerodactyl, which I think I've seen it in a sample team. I've seen people use it. It's a choice bander. What's the logic?
The exact same thing it does in OU, it does in Ubers. So rock reses are Groudon and Metagross. That's literally it.
Right.
Remove those and you get to click Rock Slide for free over and over again. It's also E-Speed resistant, which is pretty cool. It has a really good speed tier of speed tying Mewtwo. It's faster than basically everything. It threatens Stall really hard past Groudon. It has Pursuit, so you can run Pursuit as a filler and trap DOA. It's not very consistent, but it can do it.
Do they usually go faster than Aero on Deoxys attack, or do they cheat a little bit?
Yeah. If they CB lock or if they're at -1 after superpower, they're going to switch out.
Right.
So you can Pursuit them on the way out there. Just like CB, Rock Slide, EQ, Double Edge, and then a last move of your choosing. Usually it's HP Ghost, because Ghost is a really strong move to clear.
Cool. Yeah, there's a lot of Pokemon in here that are like OU mons that are viable because of like the different metagame. Like you said, there's not as many rock resists as there are, because TIER is not like the central force, so Aero can just have a place, click in Rock Slide, and similar idea with like Heracross. There's not sand as being as common, so reversal's really good. Same with Metacam. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of stuff like that.
You don't have to deal with Death Pert every game, so Arrow obviously appreciates that.
100%, yeah. What do you got next? Smeargle. We've talked about it.
The exact same thing it doesn't know you.
Yeah.
For
You're elite
spikes.
and you make spikes. There you go.
Yep.
Not much to say, to be honest. We've talked about it in the Glalie segment. Can it safely spore against stuff that's faster than it usually? You bulk for that?
Mewtwo, you cannot spore because of them running Lumberry. Latios, you just click Endure. And then you get your Salac Berry.
Ah, true.
Kyogre sometimes runs Lumberry. It's rare. Groudon basically never does. So you can just click you can click Spore versus most things. You just click Endure versus Latios. Into Mewtwo, you can no, you can actually still Spore versus Mewtwo because you don't die to anything except for Brick Break, which is rare. And then
You endure and
you
then
can
spore again.
Yes.
Cool.
So, yeah.
I love it. Yeah, pretty well positioned. Probably Lum leads are not as common as they are in OU, right? I mean, Mewtwo's actually pretty common, but not the world's most common guy. Up next, you've placed Jirachi, which I've used on a couple of teams, and I really like it in this format. I don't know how I'd rank it. Like, B seems fair to me. It's not like a central force or something, but it's. I really like. It's a good switch into Latios, especially on a Sun team. You nerf Thunder. You can come in on Latios, Mewtwo, stuff like that. Deoxys attack.
So, Rachi's good. It's a great spreader of paralysis. There's just like a few really big issues with it. For one, it needs spin support. If it gets late spikes versus, switching to Latios is now a nightmare. Probably even undoable. Rachi is best with a Snorlax. Wishing up Lax so that you can trade health with it is really good. And it has the problem of if it's on rain, you have to switch into Thunder, which means you're one pair away from dying. Move slots are a problem. If you're running B-Slam Fire Punch, you get PP stalled by Recover Refresh Latios. So you have to run Shadow Ball. And if you're running Shadow Ball, you don't damage steals.
Yeah.
So it has that really weird problem. I mean, it's still like a pretty good Pokemon. It's something I think. No, I'm not gonna say that. Rachi's like fine. I have it on a TIER team that I like a lot. It's good. It pseudo checks like a bunch of stuff, and paralysis is broken. So
Yeah, and wish support's fun. And lastly, here we've got, I think, Deoxys defense.
yes.
Up in the B
so, I've been on record saying that DoD is terrible, awful. Never use it ever. I kind of take that back. I realized that a spiker that isn't mag trappable, pretty good. Threatens knock on Lotties, which is also pretty good. I would never use this on stall though. I think this is purely like a balance offense Pokemon. It is an HO lead that beats all of the other HO leads because it has faster taunt than all of them. Except for Mewtwo. Mewtwo's an HO lead that doesn't beat. It also doesn't really lose to Mewtwo. Like, you still get a spike out of Mewtwo. So as an HO lead, it is one of the best. But it is also one of the worst HO leads because using DoD as an HO lead means you can't use DOA on your HO. So while it is very effective as a lead, you really have to sit there and think, hey, do I just use like a Glalie here or something so that I can have a DOA in the back? So while those aren't as guaranteed of layers or like effectiveness, they allow you to use DOA, which is why that they still get used. So yeah, it threatens Hera with Psycho Boost. It threatens Steals with Fire Punch. Fast Taunt is really good. Knockoff's good. I think the fatter sets are still pretty whack. Like, Sub-CMons kind of just own them. Taunt S-Toss helps with that, but then you're running Taunt, S-Toss, Spikes for cover, and then you don't have knockoff. Like, you can't really fit all the moves you want. You can't have Fire Punch, and can't really threaten like Metagross or Fori or Skarm. Or you can't have knockoff, and then you don't really do anything to Lottie, or you can't have Toxic or T-Wave, and then you can't status like an Ogre. So it has
move slot syndrome there.
Mm-hmm.
I think, like you said, if you could run this plus Deoxys attack, it would probably be higher. But unfortunately, you can only run one Deoxys.
I think DoD, DOA, HO would be fantastic.
Yeah.
But unfortunate, we don't have Species Clause.
But yeah, it's got a lot of great qualities, you know. Bulky Spiker. Seems counterintuitive that it's like an offensive mon rather than some kind of stally balancy thing, but also makes sense. The ability to make spikes pretty reliably versus most leads really helps out an offensive team.
Yeah. The reason I don't like it on Fat, you'll see DoD Fat and Balance used still. The reason I personally will never use that is just because it's impossible to cover everything with DoD. Like, you're always going to be weak to stall killers still. And you're always going to have the problem of, oh, I don't have enough move slots on this. It also actually wants spin. So you kind of want to Fori with it. And then, then
I think
kind of like
Forretress is probably a more logical spiker on a Stolia thing.
I think it works on like flyer spam, like Superman, basically. It can work there.
Okay, that's cool. Up next, we've got Skarmory. Literally a better Pokemon than Deoxys Defense. That's kind of funny when you think about it, but I think it's true. I've used Skarmory, and I love it in Ubers. It's great into Groudon, great into like Snorlax, a lot of stuff. It's a good spiker. Mm-hmm. It's immune to spikes itself. Same kind of reason it's good in OU, right?
Yeah, it is one of the best layers of spikes. I have very hot opinions on Skarmory, but I'll talk about the positives first. It's a very good Groudon check. It's not a counter, it's a check. It checks every physical. Doesn't counter every physical. It checks all of them. This is very important.
Yeah.
It's a DOA check, not a counter. It is a counter to CB Lugia, unless they run Thunder, in which case, I'm sorry. It's pretty good in Mew. Most wacky HO mons below it, look at Gyarados, look at like Tauros, weird HO stuff is generally pretty poor into Skarmory. So it's a good anti-whack pick. Now, my big issue with Skarm is that it is just so precarious versus Sun offense. Because it is so easy to slap a fire move on every Pokemon on the team. And then Skarmory just explodes. Versus like Fire Blast, Sun Boosted Snorlax. It's like every time you send out Skarm, you have to like send out Ogre and set the rain again. Of course, you can see this as a positive as you're forcing a Fire Blast from Snorlax. Now you generate free Ogre momentum. Now you can look at it like that. Of course, if they don't care and they click B-Slam, now you might have a paralyzed Kyogre. Of course, Magneton is also a Pokemon that people run. And Skarm into Mag is genuinely super sad.
Yeah.
because there's nothing to do about it. It is probably the worst pursuiter in the game. It does like 65% to Spadef DOA. Which is just pathetic. You need a spike to kill it on the way out.
It's a cool option though, for what it is. It's not
Yeah.
the world's most reliable pursuiter, but it's nice to have.
Also, if they have Thunder or Fire Punch, you are not a trapper. You just lose. Or if they're Pataya, then you are not a DOA answer. But you can build to beat Pataya and still have Skarm. I don't really like how much momentum it gives, like to Latios and Ogre. I think it is possibly the best matchup fish in the tier.
Interesting.
If you pick into like no overheat Dawn Sun offense, it is pretty damn good. But if you pick into like Rain Off with Thunderlax, which is a thing, I've used that. Like Rain Off with Thunderlax or Sun Off with Fire Move spam, then it's really hard to generate proper opportunity.
Yeah, that is a big problem, the fact that everything it checks can also run fire coverage pretty much, and then Sun exists, but I do still think it's quite solid, and I've enjoyed using it myself.
Yeah,
Good Pokemon.
Skarmory's fine. Like, it has some cool moves too. Like Thiefing Latios is pretty cool if you can fit it on a set. You can't really, but like in theory,
You can run that forth. That's not too bad. It's pretty telegraphed though. You give it away once they see no leftovers.
Mm-hmm. Like when you switch into Lax B Slam, they kind of know what's up.
That's cool though. Thieving anything's not too bad. Anyway, let's move on. Skarmory. Still a metagame staple even in Ubers. Up next, you've placed Kabutops above Skarmory. I don't know if that's a hot take in the community. It looks a bit weird, but Kabutops is pretty nuts in Ubers.
Yeah. I think most people would say that Omastar is the best rain abuser. I think it's Kabutops for the same reason that Aerodactyl is really strong.
I was going to say that he's like an Aerodactyl with the Sorcerer.
Mm-hmm. Rock resists are extremely sparse. And unlike Arrow, he actually has a defense stat of 105. So he can click CB Slide and eat a hit. SD exists too. It's kind of bad because you really just want to double edge Groudon on switch in, get that +1 double edge for like 45 or something. Or like 35. I don't know the calc off the top of my head. But it's good at forcing damage onto Groudon and Kyogre. And it's a good cleaner. Rock Slide is obviously a magical move that can choose your way into any number of one end game.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's probably a little bit of a hot take, but I don't think it's too hot.
The problem Omastar has, right, is that Latios and Ogre get invited in. But at least Kabutops' double edge is quite clickable, and they don't want to come in on that.
Yes, and Kabutops shares check with Metagross, which is really good for like a back DOA.
Oh yeah, true.
Whereas like Omastar and DOA don't really share checks, so it's kind of like different points that you're attacking.
That's a bit of offensive synergy, folks. Making way for your Deoxys attack using Kabutops. Very good stuff.
Oh, this is the thing I was going to say on Jirachi. I think Skarmory is the last Pokemon that you have to make active decisions for in the team builder. I think everything else below it is something that you can beat by covering everything above it. I think Skarmory is the last Pokemon that you really need to like pick a move or like pick a Pokemon to say, I want to beat Skarmory. Maybe
Okay.
that's a hot take. I don't know. That's my opinion.
So you're saying like you cover everything Skarmory and above, and then you'll naturally cover the stuff below as well.
Yes, maybe not in conjunction with one another, but say like putting a fire move on Latios to hit Skarmory in Sun is going to cover Jirachi too.
Oh
Putting
yeah.
putting speed control for Kabutops having an Earthquake Rayquaza, that covers Exeggutor, or that covers Omastar too. Um, having having T-Wave on Groudon to help with Latios helps you with all the BSHO mons like Metachamp, um, stuff like that.
That's fair, yeah. I think that sounds logical. I have never seen Dugtrio in Ubers. Can you explain what this guy does? I'm trying to think of
Um,
what he even traps. Metagross.
traps Meta, he traps Blissey, um, and that's quite frankly all he really needs to trap. Those are two extremely important targets.
Yeah, that
Um,
supports like Deoxys attack, right?
mhm. It's a great DOA supporter. Um, obviously, can trap any grounded mon if they're low enough. Um, Heracross is like a good mon too. Jirachi, um, it's not something that like you put a Doug on there because you're like, man, I just lose 06 to Jirachi. I need a Doug trio.
No, no.
Kind of just like an added side effect of, hey, they don't have a defensive Jirachi anymore. Um, he's he's not bad. Beat up is way more effective because everything has a million attack.
Oh, so true,
Like
yeah. That would be so good. You
at
just one
Kyogre,
hit
even at
Blissey?
yeah.
Wow.
And they don't run Ice Beam, like period. Um,
Well, there
so
you go.
you get super free traps. Yeah, you have like Heal Bell or like Aromatherapy, S-Toss, Light Screen, Soft Boiled, or like Toxic Snatch. So they just lose outright to Doug.
That would get him like every time. They didn't even cover Doug, really. Like, it's not the
Mm-hmm.
metagame staple it is in OU. They're not gonna like be playing around it too hard.
Exactly. So like Ogre Doug is really strong versus Stall because they rely a lot on Blissey setting the screen for their Whirlwinders. Um, but once that's gone, they really can't do anything. Obviously, removing Metagross for DOA is the most obvious piece of synergy. Um, but other than that, removing Bliss for any number of special attackers or deleting Heracross like CB Hera is just a menace. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, that's what he does.
And say they don't have Metagross or Blissey or Hera. Are you still alright? You can come in on Thunders, I guess, and maybe
It's a
like.
Thunder Pit, and you do like 70 to Latios with HP Ghost.
Really? That's a lot.
Yeah. Well, and you run Adamant, so it does even more. The calc says 72 to 85, which is pretty good.
Do you outrun Latios with Adamant? I guess you'd go to like 330 something?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
You're 339. You can run Jolly to trap Mewtwo though. Not that you're actively looking to trap Mewtwo, but if you want to, you can run Jolly for Mewtwo.
That's fun.
Yeah,
You finish off like Snorlax probably sometimes too.
but you have a very good point. If you aren't running into Meta Bliss or Hera, it's kind of like, why is he here?
I mean, he's a choice bander. He can do damage. It's kind of also matchup insurance. If they don't have
Mm-hmm.
Blissey, you're probably happy anyway.
Yeah,
So that's alright.
for sure. And like even trapping like the super Spadef invested lax it's super possible. Um, like just get it to 50 and then earthquake it and boom. Oh wow, my Latios looks a lot better here.
Yeah, similar I did it in Gen 3 you run Doug on a special offense. They got Snorlax instead of Blissey. Still not the end of the world. You can just do a big chunk to it and make way for your other fellas to break through.
Hmm.
You got Dusclops next. Probably a pretty logical one. He's a spin blocker. I imagine he's kind of hard to fit though.
Yeah, he's the spin blocker. So like, remember how I was talking about like Starmie is paired with Shedinja, because it beats Gengar. If their spin blocker is Clops, you've lost the game
Yeah.
because you cannot do anything. Um, it is one of the best lax answers. It is very hard to kill, very annoying. Wisp is a great click, except into Ho-Oh. Um, it's probably a little bit overrated here. It's very, very, very crit prone. It's also a pursuit trapper, which is pretty funny.
Oh yeah.
Granted,
A lot of random stuff gets pursuit and you don't realize it
yeah,
until you
physical
play.
DOA still has Shadow Ball, but like if it's Choice Banded or if it's Sub Bataya, you can trap it. So it helps cover those matchups for fatter teams.
Cool. Excellent. Now the spin blocker I've used myself was Gengar, and you've placed it higher. I think
Yeah,
that's fair. It gets explosion. That's probably what makes it quite epic.
it has Boom and a really good speed tier.
Yeah.
It is a lax check. It is a Groudon check, quote unquote. You really don't want to, but it can. Now, for the people watching who may not know, Gengar is not running your 80 VOU set in this tier. They actually run Shadow Ball because Ghost Stab is excellent. You 2-hit KO like every Psychic, and having attack invested Explosion for like Kyogre, just so that it like actually dies, really good. Or like I'm calcing Timid Boom, it does 60 to 70, whereas you have like max attack and it does 93 to 110. Like that's a big difference.
That's
Like
on
Timid Boom.
Kyogre or
Oh, dude, Timid Boom versus Groudon. I don't think you want to know how much it does.
that's doing like 40 or something.
Yeah, 41 to 49. That's not much damage. The biggest problem with Special Gengar is that it actually can't beat Groudon. Special Ice Punch doesn't do damage to Careful Groudon, and you can never ever break Ho-Oh with Special unless you run like Modest and they aren't running any bulk, and you hit your Thunders, which if you're lucky, all the power to you. You can just paralyze that guy, I guess, but Physical Gar can run HP Rock for Ho-Oh instead.
Oh, that's very epic. I love that.
It's very funny. I love it. He does what he doesn't owe you, but just in a different way. Wisp is still super clickable. Boom is still great. Yeah, and he's a spin blocker, and that's really hard to come by.
Yeah, folks. Seems counterintuitive to run attack on Gengar. Such a low attack stat, but it's just the meta. There's a lot of psychics. Shadow Ball is very strong, and then yeah, big explosions take out like a lot of key stuff. Wisp, insane.
Gar Boom is really hard to deal with because the only thing that can really take it is meta, and you really don't want to get your Metagross burned. So it's very potent.
Do you run like Spell Tag or even perhaps Silk Scarf or something like that, just for stronger hits?
I think you could probably run Spell Tag, yeah. Most run lefties, but I think there's a lot of item experimentation to be done.
I feel like
I've
it's
started.
not sticking around quite as long as it does in OU usually, so maybe you can
hmm
afford to do that.
I think Silk Surf Boom is a pretty good call. I might try that.
Cool.
Um. Oh, they can also run Focus Punch, like Sub Punch stuff.
Oh,
Uh,
that's very fun. Is that
okay.
the idea of that is like they go lax trying to shadow ball you, and then you sub on the turn they do that, and then you can punch them or something like that.
hmm Or just subbing versus Blissey, and then you get free punches. Or just blocking a Blissey switch in general, because like S-Ball Wisp, no fighting move Gengar is just going to get sat on by Blissey all day. So it allows you to actually get through Blissey.
Cool. Yeah, you could probably just run focus punch without sub too. That's a decent option too.
hmm
Up next we've got Mew, who I've seen quite a bit. It's a HO lead a bit similar to Mewtwo, but I think what Mew gets is Swords Dance is something I've seen a lot, which I don't think Mewtwo gets.
Yes. Mewtwo has two main benefits. One is Synchronize, which has the very, very nice effect of if they click Thunder, they have a 30% chance to screw themselves over. That is really, really good because Thunder is broken. And the other is SD Boom, which kills basically everything. It is a giant click the right button here or you might lose the game. It is super easy to get off SD too. Nothing at lead reliably to it KOs and outspeeds it. Kyogre with Hydro Pump, I think it's the only thing that does. Like I think it can live Surf. I'll calc real quick. Kyogre. Oh yeah, it lives Surf like guaranteed.
Cool.
81 to 96.
And Ghost
So
type's not as common as in OU, so
you
you can probably just,
can just blow up and get
Ape Brain do the same thing every time. Swords Dance Explode. It's a bit like a Boom Metagross lead in OU, maybe.
With the added effect of you click SD and you can click another move there instead. Like you SD versus Latios, they click D-Claw, and presumably they go into like a boom switch in, but you can just click Shadow Ball there to scout what they wanted to go into, and if they stay in for some reason, well, you just got a free kill. It also gets a bunch of really funny moves like Hypnosis.
That's messed up.
Yeah. So I use SD Mew exclusively. There's like the calc set has like T-Wave, Thunder, Fire Blast, Explosion. I don't really get that one. I'm gonna be honest. Yeah, SD Mew is just a boom spam guy.
You run Fire Blast on that to hit like a Steel type trying to come in on Boom or something? Or do you not even care? You probably kill him or chunk him anyway.
You kill them, but you can run Fire Blast anyway just to try and get another kill out of Mew. That's kind of what thoughts are for. Like I've run Rock Slide there to snipe Ho-Oh and then get something off with Boom. I've run Fire Blast there, as you said, to snipe like Skarmory. Like into specific opponents, they use like a decent number of Skarm, and SD Mew is gonna it's going to what's the word?
What, 2 for
They're
1?
gonna it's gonna force in a Skarmory. It's gonna elicit. That's the word I was thinking of. It's going to elicit a Skarmory response pretty often. So yeah, SDS Ball like on its own is pretty good. And then if you want to be like a normal person, you can run Earthquake or Brick Break, any other slot, and it does pretty good damage.
That's cool. You can Earthquake a Metagross or something, or...
Yeah, EQ meta. Just EQing Lax for half of its health is pretty good.
I like Fire Blast. If you hit a Forry and then you exploit something else, it's actually over.
Mm-hmm. Or they go DOA and now you get a free trap. That's another really good aspect of Mew, is that 328 is surprisingly troll since a lot of Latias use Modest. So, like,
Yeah.
they often don't have a Mon that is super well equipped to deal with Mew outside of DOA. So you're forcing their hand into revealing their speed control really early.
I gotta give this one a go. Sounds like my play style. Up next, we've got the big wigs. Finally into the higher tier gentlemen, the A minus. Yeah. We've got Latias.
These Latias and up are going to be mons you see consistently game to game. Like, you are going to make very, very conscious decisions to beat all of these mons in the builder.
So, yep, absolutely. So with Latias, obviously overshadowed by Latios quite a bit, but the extra bulk is pretty good, probably on fatter teams, and I think as a Calm Mind win condition, it's a bit better than Latios. I think I've seen that more often.
Absolutely. So the thing that Latias really has over Latios is that if you run Bold, it lives Choice Banded, DOA, Shadow Ball, Foam, which Latios can never do. So it makes it a perfect CM win con. Of course, the issue with every Calm Mind win con and every tier ever is that if you get crit, what are you supposed to do, right?
Very true.
So the reason I placed Latias so low is because, well, it's so easy to fish for crits versus like Latifat. It's that one crit, which is pretty common and pretty easy to get, is just backbreaking. You can't really, like, if your Lati gets crit, like, even on offense, to be fair, like, if your Latios gets crit versus rain offense, you're kind of just like, well, that was fun.
Yeah.
But it's even more so backbreaking with Fat. Like, at least on offense, you have explosions and you have, like, your own broken kaiju guy. But on stall, you don't really have those luxuries. So that's why I placed it so low. That is another very low placement on my end. It's a hot take. Most people are going to have Latias in, like, A, put around, like, 8 or 9 range. I just don't like how crit prone it is. Crit and freeze prone. Some people are okay with that and see it for all the other utility it has. It's a much better Kyogre answer than Latios is. But it comes with the downside of doing way less damage. Like, the Thunder calcs are very real. If you want to give your own take on Latias, go right ahead.
Yeah, I have not personally used it yet, but it's been pretty good against me. I think I lost to it. I don't know if you run a similar, like, utility recover, refresh, thunder, ice beam set that you would on Latios, just on this for a more sturdy version of the same thing. Like, you take way less from ghost stuff, and
you can absolutely do that. The issue is that you really need other ways around Groudon and Kyogre because the damage drop off is noticeable. You lose 1v1 to CM Ogre, which is
yep.
It makes me very sad.
And I think what's good about Latios is the Thunder threatens so much outside of just checking and threatening Kyogre. Like, it does so much damage to so many things.
It does like 35 to Snorlax, whereas Latias Thunder does so much less. It's kind of sad. it still spreads para though, so it's still good.
Sometimes I feel like powering Snorlax is like a mistake, because then I can't burn it with my other guys and it just never dies. And they always switch it into Thunder as well. I feel like that has happened a few times to me.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on from Latias, we've got Lugia, who I think is quite great. It's an extremely good mixed wall with Whirlwind. I think I've got it on a Spikes team. Can also be a Choice Band threat. It's got pretty nice typing.
Yeah. I have a lot to say about Lugia.
Is this a hot take again? Is this underrated?
No. This is... I have an alt called Ban Lugia. I laddered on it for a while. Lugia is broken. It is simultaneously the best mon in the tier and the worst mon in the tier. I'll explain what that means, don't worry. So... Okay. Lugia does not die to anything. Just legitimately, there are 2 attacks in the game that OHKO it. Both are Choice Banded Rock Blasts with 5 hits. I'm pretty sure Metagross Boom doesn't kill. Hold on.
No, it doesn't. That happened to me in my 20 game. I recovered up and I lived on 3%.
Yeah, there's the count for you. That's just legitimately disgusting.
Yeah, it's got a 37% chance to kill.
Yeah, and I don't even run that much attack. This is how much attack I run. 116 plus, which is 1/8 to kill.
Damn.
So, the reason why I say it's the best Pokemon in the tier is because it is legitimately impossible to break by normal means. Without boosting, forget about it. Without explosions, not happening. Of course, I said conventional. So, you can see him up and then hit it. You can click Toxic and it gets O-code. You can click Thunder Wave or click Body Slam and make its life much more difficult. And that is where it is the worst Pokemon in the game. Paralyzed Lugia is very difficult to use because it's supposed to check so much on a stall team. Like it's a Meta check, it's a Groudon check, it's a Snorlax check. You even use it to Whirlwind out Kyogre. And if you're getting Thunder Waved or you're getting B-Slam parried, then it becomes significantly more difficult to do all of those jobs. So, in essence, its roll compression is actually like a bad thing because it has to eat so many hits that it's just going to end up getting crit eventually. Or, you're going to get a string of unlucky paras. And then... I don't know, man. I got hacked. Well, not really. Your Lugia ate 14 ice beams, and then you got crit.
Yeah.
That is why it's so low. If RNG effects were lower, not as common, it would be much, much higher. However, we don't live in that world. We play Pokemon, where that happens all the time. So, the CB stat's really good. CB Aeroblast is terrifying. I was just talking about how Lugia hates getting crit. The crit chance on Aeroblast is legitimately game-ending. It hits as hard as CB Ray, but sometimes you just delete a Pokemon from the game.
Yeah, I love that set. It's excellent.
Yeah, the bulk on it's super nice. It can check Latios. It can check Kyogre. And other choice banders just can't compare to that sort of defensive utility. It gets annihilated by Skarmory, so you'll see it with Magneton with decent regularity. I choose to not do that and just pray to God they don't have Skarmory or run like Thunderlax. Um, so yeah, that's all I got to say about Lugia. If you have anything to add,
Did you say CB Lugia can run Thunder
yes,
to
it
hit
can.
Skarmory? That's cool. I suppose I agree with you. It can get a bit overloaded on some teams, trying to wall too many things and being relied on as the main wall. I wonder if that's like a team building issue. Maybe you could circumvent that. It still
Um,
represents, such defensive power.
you can kind of circumvent it, but on stall, you really have to like pick and choose. Like Lugia is going to answer Snorlax, always, because Groudon eating a para is game ending. Ho-Oh eating a para just sucks. Like those two getting paralyzed are just as bad as Lugia getting paralyzed, if not worse.
Yeah.
And the consequences for Ho-Oh getting exploded are not as great. Ho-Oh is like the premier blow me up Pokemon on Fat. So, Ho-Oh is still a good check to Lax, but like if you really need to like check Lax and your Ho-Oh is paralyzed, you don't have many better options. And while you're right on the end that whirlwinding out Kyogres with Lugia is not the greatest idea. The last slot on Sunstall, which is Groudon, Blissey, Fori, Ho-Oh, Lugia, you can just put Roar Latias there, but +1 Ice Beam is a 2-hit KO. So it becomes you need to set Light Screen, and then you need to not get crit with Latias, and then you need to roar it out.
Yeah.
So it's still Stall is going to get hacked, but it's just with a different Pokemon. So yeah, you can circumvent the overload issue a little bit, but at the same time, it's just different Mons getting crit instead of Lugia.
It's like a
Which,
problem with stall itself rather than Lugia,
yeah, that's
perhaps.
just a problem with defensive playstyles in Pokemon, is that they're naturally more susceptible to RNG.
Very true. It's a bit like Melodic in Gen 3 OU.
Mm-hmm.
Up next, you've got Wobbuffet, which I think is a great trapper. Enables a lot of stuff. You can eliminate a lot of key things for your teammates.
Yeah. Kind of like degenerate, if we're being
You think so?
frank. Yeah, it is a guaranteed Snorlax trapper. That's disgusting. um, if they leave in Lax, a perfectly normal play to do, leave in Snorlax versus Latios, and you go to Wobbuffet, their Snorlax is dead. And well, that just means that Latios is now stupid. Of
True.
course, if you load it into 182 speed Blissey, which is a thing to creep max speed Wobbuffet, it's much harder to get going. You can circumvent this by just paralyzing it with Thunders or T-Wave Ogre, and now you generate a lot more pressure because they have to respect you slowing down their Blissey to trap it with Wob. Otherwise, they're going to lose a Pokemon. They're going to lose their Blissey, and they're going to just fold like a piece of paper. So it's still like really annoying to deal with, even when you have Blissey. That's another thing that Regice does. That's why Regice is good and better than I thought it was, because it outspeeds Wobbuffet and has an actual offensive presence.
Cool. Yeah.
So that's what he does. So Wobbuffet is a guaranteed lax trapper, which enables special offense. It is a good bliss trapper, and it can trap Metagross. And it can trap like anything on a double down. Wob after Boom is extremely stupid. It's a Rayquaza trapper. It can even trap Latios, uh, which is stupid. Latios is a little bit more mind gamey, but the principle is still there. Yeah.
It's a bit silly, I suppose, and creates a lot of 50-50s between, like, do I Swords Dance or do I attack, like with Groudon or something.
Losing your Groudon to Wobbuffet is not what you want to see.
I have won a game like that.
It's so dumb.
Oh well. This was my favorite Pokemon when I was a kid, so I like using it, but it is a bit... It's a bit silly, for sure.
What changed?
What, like, is it not...
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, it's a 1D, like, trapper. I just liked the idea of, like, it only has counter moves. Thought that was a cool design. Kind of is a cool design. But, yeah. I remember using it in Gen 5 OU too. It used to be illegal in that when I was younger.
Oh my. Shadow Tag in Gen 5, man.
Yeah. Those were the days. Yeah, funny Pokemon. Up next we've got Heracross, insanely high position for the bug. But well deserved. It's an insane threat.
Yeah, this is a recent revelation. So I think last year I put Heracross like 19th or something, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, I put him in 12. So the reasoning for that is during a Uber's Premier League, I didn't discover, my teammate actually discovered the power of pumping Spadef on Heracross. It makes it into the best lead in the game.
Wow.
You have a psychic move on your psychic types, or you have a losing matchup. That is just how good it is. And if people are wondering, like, oh, why don't they just run a psychic move on their psychic types? Generally because it doesn't really hit anything. Psychic into Metagross is just bad. Like, Psychic into, like, Blissey isn't going to do anything. You really want your other utility moves on your Latios or your Mewtwo. I think it's even a roll with Mewtwo, gonna be honest, which is just hilarious. And Pokemon that beat Hera, like Ray, like, I'll just lead Rayquaza. Ray lead loses to every other lead that's not named Heracross. Mm-hmm. So, if you want to go for that route, be my guest. The list of calcs that this thing gets is absurd. Hold on. Let me link you these, because I have a list if you want to take a look.
Sure. Yeah, banned Hera lead has been the bane of my existence. It totally destroyed me in my tournament.
So there's a giant list of calcs that it eats.
Can I somehow pull this up? I guess I can just recite this. So we live a Kyogre pump. You live a modest Kyogre surf. You live. Modest Mewtwo Fire Blast. You live. What?
Yes.
So, ladies and gentlemen, modest Mewtwo Fire Blast. You actually live, and you can kill the Mewtwo. Wow. And then, all right, Sacred Fire from Ho-Oh. That's only if they're minus special attack though, with no investment.
That's in Sun, by the way.
Oh, but that's in the Sun. Wow. Yeah. That's a you can live that one. Is that a set minus special attack Ho-Oh? I guess the band set or something.
Yeah, that's the majority of them. Like defensive runs minus attack, because they run Shadow Ball for Lottie.
Right.
And then like band runs Sacred Fire.
And yeah, you live Overheat, you live Deoxys attack Fire Punch. This guy just lives everything in the world, folks. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's Dio Fire Punch and Sun doing 75 on a mid roll.
Wow.
Yeah, he's very fat. I don't know if Latios declawed to it KOs. I assume it does. Like, I don't think hair is that fat.
Well, they can't stay in there.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Okay, it does to it KO. Thank God. It's just like the one problem with it is Skarmory. Mega Horning into Skarmory, if they don't have a Magneton, is just a huge momentum sink. Of course, you know, this is probably one of the best mons to pair a Magneton with. So, you got those mind games going on. And, you know, if Skarmory's their Heracross, then removing it is likely very beneficial for your team. Speaking on, like, HO synergy, it is... Salak Hera is one of the best mons in the game at forcing out a DOA. Hera plus Wob is extremely nasty because Wob is going to very reliably trap Rayquaza after it comes in versus Hera.
You just go straight to Wob once they...
Yeah, and then the Ray is dead. So there goes their speed control.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's really good.
There's not really a whole lot more to say about Heracross. He's strong in a tier with a bunch of psychics and very little resistances.
Yeah, when I was playing against it, I was like, okay, I've got a Forretress I can go to or a Lugia. Lugia's taken like 47 from Mega Horn. Forry's actually taken like 35 or something. So it's not a great position. You can't really come in on anything, even what you would think you can come in on. Like, you're still taking a huge chunk. Even a Forry taking 35. What if they just stay in and kill you? Then you don't have a... I mean, they probably don't do that. They can miss, but there's a world where they get through you, and then all of a sudden you're worse into their Snorlax. Forretress is gone.
God, I'm watching the replay. You send in Salak Ogre.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, I can go Salak Ogre and get my berry. Force it out once, and then he's just got his own Kyogre. I remember that.
Yeah, and then you foolishly attempt to thunder it at 60%.
Like I said, I calced against the OU set. I didn't realize he was running special defense, because that's quite the development that makes it even crazier.
That really sets it over the edge for me. Like, before, I just thought it was like, you know, he's okay. You know, he's certainly threatening, and he forces speed control. But now that you can just stay in on everything and just click Mega Horn, it's like, wow, this guy's pretty cool.
Up next, we've got a Rayquaza. Cover legendary. Every child's favorite. Very epic. One of probably the premier, like, choice bander in my eyes.
I'd say so. I think that's a pretty good assessment.
You've got the big band E-speed. Huge HP flying. One of the nicest ways to deal with metagame Titan Heracross. And, yeah, just general hard hitter. DDR. Mixed coverage. It's a bit like Salamence, but with priority and even more powerful. Yeah.
Think of Salamence, except it shuts down all weather sweepers thanks to airlock. Its attacking stats are through the roof, and at his E-speed, and you have Rayquaza. Oh, it also has fancy new coverage in Ice Beam and Thunderbolt for if you're really into that. What do you think about Ray? What's your opinion on him?
I think I've used it a bit. It's in a lot of sample teams. Yeah, it seems solid to me. I haven't fit it on any of my personal builds. I haven't like arrived at it, I guess, but yeah, I'm sure I would in the future. It's got that. I love the fact it has airlock. I think the meta needs that.
Yeah, airlock's really cool. Being able to soak up water moves from Ogre a little bit better. It's not really an Ogre switching, but if you need it, it works. Being able to dodge thunder and rain, that's always an out. Play to your outs. As much as you say that, like, as much as people say that, like, that's an out. You get 70% accurate thunder. Hey man, you better use it. Taking like nothing from Hoa Sacred Fire, getting burned sucks, but like that's something you can do. And obviously, just shutting down Omastar, Exeggutor, etc. is super nice. To my understanding, Ray is actually a pretty recent metagame development. Like, people for a long time thought Ray was terrible and never used it. And then...
Really? That's surprising to me. It's on the box, man.
3 or 4 years ago, Ray got a massive surge in usage, and yeah, it's not hard to see why. He's a great breaker and great speed control, and he allows you to do stuff like drop E-speed on DOA for more coverage. So yeah, I like him.
He's even a bit of a DOA answer with his own E-speed.
And like that really weird bulk of just being able to eat anything.
Yeah, great Pokemon. Let's talk about Ho-Oh. My personal favorite legendary when I was younger. Very awesome looking guy. And
yeah, Ho-Oh's pretty cool.
It can do a lot of different things. It's like a defensive. It's got a sub-CM set, I think. I don't know how outdated that is, but that's something that exists.
I made that last year.
Oh. Not outdated, it's current. It's very current.
People started running HP Rock Ho-Oh into me to beat my sub-CM Ho-Oh.
Oh, that's called meta development right there. I'm a Ho-Oh fan. I've got it on one of my Sun teams. I think it's a great mon on Sun. It's very logical. Sun pick.
Yeah. It's a great Sun mon. It has a really unique defensive profile. It's fire flying, but it has real defenses, which is, very rare. 150 force bit F on this kind of typing is pretty huge. It pseudo checks Latias under Sun because 50% accurate Thunder. It's a Groudon check. It's a Snorlax. It's a Metagross check. It's a Hera check. It can probably check Ray. The CB set is really strong at breaking. Like CB HP Fly hits hard. I don't think I need to tell you that.
Of course, yeah.
You have
Shadow Ball.
Yeah, Shadow Ball is just a really strong click. You have the defensive set, which is like Recover, Toxic, Sacred Fire, Shadow Ball. That's just like a fat guy who doesn't die. He spreads burn, he spreads poison. He's just annoying. He's pretty hard to deal with. He's probably the best mon to sack to Metagross Boom. Also pretty good at sacking to Lax Boom, which is a weird thing to compliment him on for, but it's very good at doing that. the sub CM set I made to just sweep over Sunstall. It's pretty poor into rain offense, admittedly, because you aren't a Ho-Oh that really forces damage onto Kyogre, and that's one of the best things about Ho-Oh, is its ability to sit in on like a Snorlax or a Metagross, click Sacred Fire, force a burn onto Kyogre, and like Spike, or just playing a longer game, Kyogre takes more and more damage, and you're winning the weather war by just existing. That's really Ho-Oh's biggest strength.
Get some chip.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great game plan right there.
Yeah, Ho-Oh's great.
But better than Ho-Oh is OU Pokemon Blissey.
Yeah.
Probably it's quite logical, He's pretty good in every Uber's meta as just a check to all the insane legendary special attackers.
Yeah. This meta would be a lot worse without Blissey. Because it's the special check, the premier one. For those who don't know what it runs, Toxic Snatch is pretty common. It runs Aroma because Paralysis is stupid. It runs Seismic Toss
because
Seismic Toss, I don't know, man.
Deals damage to the enemy.
Yeah, Calm Mind used to be like a really old set, like Calm Mind, Ice Beam, Thunder, which 1v1 CM Ogre. People stopped running that because they realized that there's more to life than beating CM Ogre 1v1 with a Blissey. I've used Counter and Flamethrower. Those are both two solid moves that you can use on Blissey. Counter is nice because usually they just try to generate free turns with Lax B-Slam or Metagross Meteor Mash by switching it on a Toxic. And then you completely reverse that and just remove their physical attacker from the game entirely.
That's a huge turn. That would be really...
Mm-hmm. It's a massive momentum swing. What else can Blissey do? Icy Wind helps with Wobbuffet and setup sweepers. Am I missing anything? I think I've covered everything that Blissey can do.
Does get destroyed by Doug in this format, but...
Yes. Doug... Oh, Light Screen. For those wondering... Yeah. I mentioned Light Screen Blissey earlier. Basically, Stall loses 6-0 to Sub CM Ogre without Light Screen Blissey. You might be thinking, well, if you're running Light Screen, Toxic, Aroma, Soft-Boiled Blissey, how do you beat Kyogre with that? And the answer is, Blissey's not the one beating Kyogre. The only real way around it with Sunstall is either you harden a Thunder Lottie, and just pray to God they don't wear you down, you get crit, or they have like 2 primals, or primals, kaijus, whatever you want to call them. Or you set up a light screen, hazards are down, and you go to one of your phasers and you click Whirlwind or Roar. And that is probably one of the best ways to deal with it. So, yeah, that's Blissey. Same thing. Well, not even the same thing that she always does. Light Screen's pretty new.
That is, yeah. I think you see that in like Gen 2, there's Light Screen with Blissey, but that's a whole different world. Mm-hmm. It's a fun little idea. Light Screen, support your teammates, let them beat the Titans, the Kyogres, and the other CMs that can help against.
Mm-hmm. Mewtwo is a big one too.
Absolutely. Pretty straightforward though. Pretty straightforward role Blissey has. Above Blissey though is Forretress, who is kind of like probably the best spiker in the game.
I would agree with that.
Quite an upgrade in status from itself in OU. It's competing with all these legendaries. It's doing the job. Steals are hard to come by. Roll compression, you got spikes and spin on the same Pokemon, and it's not as scared of ghost types as it is in OU. A lot of the stuff in OU that it's scared of, it can kind of just ignore and be alright. It's very well positioned in the metagame.
One really big thing that I think really helps Forretress here is it is much easier to get off Explosion because of the lack of like tons of Gengar.
That's also
Boom.
that's great.
Boom on Fori is so good because you can lay a spike and then blow up Kyogre. Like, that is huge. Being a steel type is obviously fantastic. It has similar issues to what we were talking about with Skarmory, where we were like, well, if they have Sun Up, you kind of have to scout every single Pokemon on their team for a fire move. It has that problem too, but the boom more than makes up for it. Just having that ability to just shift all momentum with an explosion is just fantastic.
I think Fori being above Skarm sort of says something about this metagame. In OU, Skarm's the better spiker because it's spike immune itself and it's sturdier. Sticks around a long time, but Forretress is more of a short-term resource. You're not spike immune, but you have access to explosion, and that's more valuable, I think, in the pace of this metagame.
I also think it's funny how I really hate Skarm in this tier. I am the biggest Skarm fanatic in OU, and I hate Fori in OU. I love it here. It's so nice. Really shows like the juxtaposition of the metagames, like just how different they are. Different but same. The same principles still apply, right? Like, you lay your spikes, you click boom. You send your Skarmory into Snorlax. But the following interactions are what make the difference between the Pokemon so vast in my eyes.
Absolutely. Forretress has been one of the most slappable Pokemon in the format. I put it on a lot of my teams. It never feels too bad to have.
Yeah, and it's so safe.
It's always getting
spikes. Yeah, spike, spin, and boom is just so good. Such good roll compression when Gengar isn't overpowered.
100%. What's up next? We've talked about him a lot. The king, Snorlax. We said Blissey's the premier special wall, but Snorlax is a special wall and also an offensive threat. Has access to Shadow Ball, which we've talked about is extremely valuable. Has access to like mixed Fire Blast coverage, Explosion, Body Slam is very spammable. It's got a lot of the most powerful tools in the metagame on one Pokemon.
Yeah, that's as succinct as you can put it, really. It's the offensive special check. It has a ton of really weird moves you can play around with. The most standard stuff is like Slam, S-Ball, Fire Blast, Boom. Toxic Lax is extremely potent because Ho-Oh and Lugia were just like, oh, I'm gonna eat this B-Slam and then I'm gonna click Reflect and then haha. Or like, I'm gonna click Sacred Fire. You toxic them and now all of a sudden they're not feeling so good about existing anymore.
Absolutely, yeah.
Curse Rest Lax is much more a thing because there's no sand. So that's a real win con. Amnesia, Curse Rest is a thing, but it is very much all in on Snorlax. Belly Lax is a thing. You spread paralysis early with like CMT Wave Ogre, B Slam with Lax early, and then you click Belly Drum versus a fatter team, and all of their mons fall over. It's very important to paralyze Groudon before you do that. Paralyzing Groudon, but leaving like unparalyzed Lugia is generally fine. And you can set up something pretty nasty there. Something Lax can do is Covet. I haven't actually played around too much with Covet Lax, but
Is
like
that Thief?
it's Thief, but normal type. You know, thieving stuff is always good.
That's quite fun.
Something that EDVOU players may not be used to is that Mixlax is extremely common. If a Snorlax is on Sun, it's gonna have a fire move, and if it doesn't, then well, you got owned. Hold the L. Counter is good. Yeah, Protect is very common on Snorlax. Just to get that extra lefties turn, and to scout Metagross and Forretress explosions.
That is something I noticed when I played this format. You never see that in other formats, but yeah, the strength of Boom, the lack of sand, Protect goes a long way.
Something, a really interesting interaction that you don't get to see too much in OU is Curse Protect Lax versus Forretress. So, a line I played a lot is lead Kyogre. If they have Latios, just go Snorlax. Curse up immediately. If they go to Fori, then you keep clicking Curse, and you keep doing it until they spike all the way up, or you protect after the first spike, and now you have like a +3 Lax, and you just teched it on their Boom. So you just got massive value out of their Snorlax. Like, they got their spikes, sure, but now they got to deal with this massive threat in front of them. And I think that's a really cool interaction that you don't get to see much like elsewhere.
That is extremely cool, yeah.
Oh, CB Lax is the thing. Normal stab is much more clickable.
I don't think I've seen that or used it, but sounds very good, yeah. Says a lot, Like, Tar and Skarm in OU really are the only things keeping Snorlax from going nuts. And Snorlax in this, like, every time you get a defensive switch, which it obviously gets so often because of its insane stats, you're body slamming. And that's just such a strong free click. Like, it's so good. And we're lucky in OU that it's kept at bay by more powerful defensive ideas. Xenobus, it obviously can contend even with these big legendaries on that alone.
It's one of the best mons of the tier, really. I think that says a lot. That Snorlax is one of the best mons in Ubers, despite these guys with their 9 million BSTs and broken abilities. Here's Lax just vibing and throwing out body slams.
Absolutely. Up next, we've got iconic legendary Pokemon Mewtwo. Excellent offensive lead.
Yeah.
Extremely speedy gentleman. Win condition, Calm Mind, even Bulk Up, Focus Punch. That's an extremely fun set that you don't see in other Ubers formats.
Yeah.
Self-Destruct, obviously a great option. It's got a great deal going for it.
Mewtwo is sort of a jack of all trades, but instead of jack of all trades, master of none, it is actually just like one of the best leads, if not the best. So like, it can do everything, except there's this sample stall 2 set. Don't use it. It's bait. Stop.
What's the set?
Don't use it. Sub CM Mewtwo, extremely potent. It is one of the best stall killers in the game. You have Thunder, Ice Beam is usually the coverage there. I've seen and used Psychic Recover, which you might think, why would you use that? It gets walled by like everything. You just PP stall them because you have Pressure and 32 PP Recover. It's evil.
Wow, yeah.
It's a great lead because it has Boom and Thunder, Ice Beam and Fire Blast as coverage. You can run a bunch of customizable options there. Ice Beam, Thunder, Self-Destruct. You know, you're like, oh, I'm kind of weak to Ho. Okay, I'll throw on Hidden Power Rock. Okay, that shores up that matchup a little bit.
Yeah, insanely versatile.
We got Fire Blast for Metagross and 4E switch-ins. Oh, what if I want to run Focus Punch and catch a switch to Snorlax turn? You can do that. What else we got? We got Counter. You know, Lax or Meta just stay in and click their move. Boom. Counter. Goodbye. Yeah, T-Wave. You know, you want to spread a little bit of para? You know, you can do that. Taunt. You know, you want to really, like, prevent the spikes? Click Taunt. You can lay a screen and then blow up on some HO, you know? Really shore up your Latios matchup a little bit. You can do a ton of stuff with Mewtwo.
Very customizable.
Items, even. You know, the standard is Lumberry. One of the things we'll get to later is Icy Wind Latios counter leads Mewtwo. Okay, well, you know, if I'm really weak to Latios, especially like an Icy Wind variant, let me just use White Herb and then just shut that down entirely.
White Herb. That's crazy.
Tired of losing to Spadef Hera? Use Psychic. Boom. No more Spadef Hera problem. Want to do a little bit more damage to Groudon? Use Solar Beam. You know, you can use Pataya Berry, you know, and just find your way into Pataya Ring. You can do so much with Mewtwo that, you know, it's just such a funny little guy, you know, and he's a really good Pokemon to have. Something that is actually really underrated about Mewtwo is just how fat it is. Like Spell Tag, Deoxys Attack, Shadow Ball does 73 to 86 to it, to sub CM. And to lead Mewtwo, it doesn't even kill from full. Like, it's really underrated just how versatile and just all around good he is.
Yeah. I would absolutely agree. And he's one of my favorite Pokemon in the metagame.
Yeah, it's really hard to go wrong with a Mewtwo on your team.
And I think promotes a bit of creativity too with all the options. And lets you fill gaps. Like you said, you could chuck HP Rock on. You can really fill any gap you want. But above Mewtwo is Metagross, another Steel type, Gen 3 OU Titan, and, you know, famously one of the strongest exploders. Snorlax check, and pretty good move pool. You can run stuff like HP Fire, probably the best pursuiter in the game, which is important for Deoxys attack. Does a lot in a single slot, and is never bad because of explosion.
In terms of like what Metagross uses, there's not really many alien like moves going on. You got Mash, you got EQ. The EQ slot is sometimes occupied by HP Fire on Sun. You know, it helps with Skarmory. It helps with Furry a ton. Of course, that makes you worse off against Kyogre, so that's something you have to think about. Explosion, obviously, and then the last slot, as previously stated, we got Pursuit for DOA. Sometimes you can use Rock Slide. Agility exists. It very, very rarely gets used.
I like the idea of Rock Slide. That's cool.
Yeah, Choice Band. I like Fast CB because a lot of Dons switch into meta. So you just 2-hit KO like Spadef Don with Meteor Mash, and
Wow.
because you don't trigger leftovers, they don't know that you're faster. So you can just pull off that second Meteor Mash. Of course, that comes with the disadvantage of you don't know if you're faster because you can't see the leftovers. So you just kind of have to hope you are. And the other thing is, using that fast CB meta means that, well, you don't have a meta that is a really good trapper for DOA. Yeah. In terms of EVs, this is the only Pokemon that's like, everyone uses like variations of the same spread.
Okay.
Like you just run max HP, you pump Spadef for like DOA Fire Punch, Latios Thunder, random hits. You put in some amount of attack invest, some amount of speed creep, and then 20 defense to live 2 CB DOA superpowers. Metagross is a very consistent Pokemon, and he's really, really a good guy.
One of those ones you can't go wrong chucking it on the team. It improves a lot of matchups and helps a lot. Those very common things.
One of, like, despite Stall having a lot of answers to meta, like Ho-Oh and Lugia and Groudon, it's one of the better mons versus Stall because it's so good at landing Boom onto all of those guys.
Yeah, you'll eliminate a key fella and then go from there. Very powerful. Tough to deal with Boom in this meta, so that sort of amplifies it too. In the S- tier, we have Deoxys attack by itself. Not quite at the tip top, but one of the absolute titans of the metagame. And you can probably just look at its base stats and understand why it is an insane offensive threat with access to just about every coverage move in existence.
So, I want to know your opinion. Do you think DOA is in this S- tier? Is it directly below Lottie, Ogre, Don? Or do you think it's in the same tier as those three?
I think I could go either way. I definitely think if it was in the S tier, it would be at the bottom below those ones. But I suppose it does shape the meta in the same way they do, as the absolute premier threat that you need to have some form of a plan against. So in that sense, I think yeah, but it is a little bit flimsier than something like Latios, because Pursuit is fairly easy to fit on a team, I think, and then there are a few things that do check it quite nicely, and it dies to anything in the world. It's kind of easy to eliminate sometimes, but at the same time, against a good player, they're going to be prepared for that and have a plan themselves. It's an interesting Pokemon. It's definitely like an insane force. What's your logic behind putting it in its own tier a little bit below the top? What's your argument?
So, as we were, going through this and talking about like each Pokemon and what it can bring, I mentioned a few times like Hera or Medi or any of the faster guys are really consistent at forcing in DOA early. It is one of the hardest mons to game plan for because it can run so many coverage moves, but at the same time, it is one of the easiest mons to force in. Because there's not many ways to answer a Salac Heracross, or like a Salac Groudon, or a Salac Kyogre, other than Deoxys attack extreme speed. So, it's a really consistent mon to force in and land a trap on. With that being said, it still shreds all defensive like anything. Like if it clicks the right move, defense is going to have a really tough time dealing with it. If it has the right set, it can just win. But it is exploitable, and I don't want to say predictable because that really undersells just how good it is. But I think you get what I mean. It's predictable in the sense that you can replicate it like checking stuff.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Easy to bait in and eliminate as a plan. But at the same time, that's still, one for oneing at the very worst. Like, it's always at least going to 1-for-1. Probably.
And you have to think about the following turns. Like, sure, you just use your fast guy to eliminate DOA, but that was probably your best fast dude. Do you have better plans? Maybe they have a Ray in the back and you're gonna lose, right? It's not as simple as just leave in Salak Dawn and then I just won the game, your DOA is gone. No, it's never that simple.
Yeah.
So I think it's sufficiently above everything below it because of just how much it warps everything. But I don't think it's as good as the three guys who are far and away the most metagame warping Pokemon tier.
All right. And speaking of, I would consider this maybe a hot take. You've got Kyogre in the third position in the S tier. In my head, I've always thought of Kyogre as the absolute king of Gen 3 Ubers. And, I didn't play the tier, aside from a little bit. Or maybe when it's on the spotlight or something. But I've always thought, Kyogre is the absolute king, right?
So, this is a very contentious sort of territory. You can put these three in any order you want, and it's not wrong. And I do fully and firmly believe this. It is up to each player's interpretation of the top three in the tier.
Cool.
If you think that Kyogre's number one, go ahead. Kyogre's number one. You're not wrong. I can't really argue with that. If you think Latios is number one, that's okay. That's a fine number one. If you think Groudon's number one, that's also valid. They are all that metagame warping and that strong that all three at number one are valid. Now, as for my opinion, Kyogre at 3, I decided because I really hate switching into Thunder.
Yeah.
I was playing a lot of Tour games for this tier, and I was getting hacked. I was loading up a rain offense, and I was getting hit with Lax is just getting Thunder parried, or my Ogre is just taking a Thunder. I'm trying to trade, and it's just not working out for me. And I made the switch this current Uber's Premier League. I was like, I want to load up some Sun. And, I started winning a lot more. I wasn't getting hacked. I was, all of my plans were a lot more consistent when you don't have to deal with switching into Thunder. Now, that's one side of the coin. Is you defensively don't have to deal with Thunder if you're using Sun. At least not as much. Because they can still set Rain and then click Thunder. The other side of this is Kyogre is the absolute best mon at BSing anybody you're playing. Because it gets the most opportunities to click Ice Beam, to click Thunder Wave, to click Thunder, and to click ridiculously strong water moves. It is extremely strong at brute forcing, but for me personally, I think it is third because the ability of Latios to click the best move in the tier, Thunder, and really make your opponent fear for their life, and Groudon's ability to neutralize that, I think, are better than Kyogre. But Ogre at 1's fine. I have no qualms with that. I had Ogre at 1 last year.
Yeah. I thought that's why you would put... I think you were chatting about that on Discord. When you make rain, your enemy can spam thunder. And then, your defensive checks to Latios are probably like Snorlax, maybe Jirachi, maybe Blissey. Blissey doesn't mind as much, but like Snorlax for sure. You're inviting him to get paralyzed eventually. That can kind of decrease your chance of winning, whereas if you run a Groudon, they can't spam thunder. They can check you with Latios as well, with Ice Beam, but your switches in after that are more consistent, because there's no risk of thunder. Para.
And, like, Latios Ice Beam versus Snorlax is doing so much less than Latios Thunder versus Snorlax. Like, that's such a big thing. I think another part is I don't remember.
That's alright.
Whatever. We'll move on.
But yeah, maybe that says something about Sun being a more consistent archetype in general.
Yeah. Rain is much more volatile, which is both a good and a bad thing. You can really get out of almost any hole when you got a Kyogre on your side. But at the same time, having a Kyogre on your side can dig you some holes that you really don't want to be in.
At the same time, though, if you have Kyogre, you yourself can click Thunder, which isn't the best move, and then they get paralyzed, You ever think of that?
I remember. I think one of the best ways to use Rain is put a Groudon on it.
Yeah.
You share checks with Kyogre and Latios, and the really big thing is that's your Thunder pivot.
Yeah, that makes Rain more consistent right there. You've got the Thunder pivot and also Nerfer.
It's a way to force down Latios much better. I like that.
Yeah, it seems counterintuitive to run a Rain Pokemon and a Sun Pokemon on the same team, but it is actually quite logical. You help out versus they're probably clicking Thunder when Rain's up into your Kyogre. You neutralize that, make your team a little bit more consistent. Now, me personally, I would put Latios at number 1. I know I did just say I've always thought Kyogre was the number 1, but playing the metagame myself the past few weeks, I feel like Latios is... It's on literally all of my teams, I think. It's the 100% most, like, auto-include Pokemon in the format. And it's never bad, and it checks, like, both Groudon and Kyogre. And, similar to, like, what we said about Snorlax, when you get a defensive switch with Snorlax, you can spam Body Slam. Latios can spam Thunder. As you said, that's insane. Fishing for Paras.
Not only can you click Thunder, D-Claw is also extremely nasty.
Yeah.
I will say, at the time I sent you that VR, I was a firm Groudon 1 believer. Now, and here's what changed my mind. I looked at the usage stats for this past year of tournaments. And I saw Latios was 30% above the next Pokemon. I'm like,
Yeah.
I think Latios is the best one in the tier, isn't it? So I've since changed my mind. I am Lottie number 1.
Yeah.
As you said, it's on literally all of my teams. It's just so good.
And just out of curiosity, when you did have Groudon at number 1, what was your argument for that? Just the fact that Sun as an archetype you felt was like really consistent and good?
I thought Sun as an archetype was more consistent than Rain, and I didn't really think of Latios as a number 1 until I looked at the usage and then looked at my teams and realized, wow, I really just use Latios on literally everything. And, when you think of like GSC Snorlax goes on everything, you think of like any other mon in that vein, and that's like a clear number 1, right?
Groudon Primal or something like that.
Yeah. And I kind of just realized, I really should have Latios at number 1.
100%, yeah. And it's got decent amount of like moveset variety too. Like you can run a Calm Mindset, you can run HP Fire.
Oh, dude.
Dragon coverage. Other random stuff, probably. Maybe status moves? I don't know. Probably.
So we got... Let me open up the set compendium. We got some options on him. And these are all worth talking about because they're all actually pretty relevant. So the first main set of Latios is Thunder, and then Declaw or Ice Beam in that second slot, and then Recover Refresh. Refresh is for Latios or Kyogre T-Wave and like Blissey Toxic, and you just PP stall Blissey. They since started running Snatch, so you can't really do that anymore. Recover is for Sustain. Declaw is your 120 base power move. It's what hits Snorlax really hard when they're setting Sun. So Sun teams will try to cheat on Snorlax, not run Careful, run Brave, because they're taking Ice Beam instead of Thunder. Declaw forces like 40% onto Snorlax if they're on Sun. And that's really the benefit of it. Ice Beam is better for Groudon, but it's worse than the Snorlax. So, take your pick. The next big set is dropping Refresh. And when you do this, you are running a coverage move that is facilitating your team elsewhere, or facilitating Latias itself. HP Fire is by far the most common. I say that like it is common. It's really not very common. Like, Recover Refresh is absurdly common. Most Lotties are Recover Refresh.
Yeah.
But if you're to expect any coverage move, HP Fire is the first one that comes to mind. It's really, really good at chunking meta. Forian Skarm, obviously. The big one that it really helps with is defensive Jirachi. Metagross is obviously massive for opening up DOA. Killing Spadef Hera in Sun is something that it can do. That's also big.
Does that kill? Is it that strong?
Yeah, it's that strong that it can actually kill. Yeah, it's just a really solid move. Now, if you decide to drop both, you might find some extremely sinister moves in the last slot. The most common is Solar Beam in the last slot with Dragon.
Now that's epic.
Yeah, Solar Beam is for Dons that try to cheat on Latios bulk, and they're like, I'll just live Ice Beam, like just barely live Ice Beam. they're not careful. They're like adamant. Those just drop straight to Solar Beam, and it's a pretty funny move. It also hits Snorlax as strong as Thunder, which is another really good thing that it does. Of course, it comes with the drawback of being Solar Beam. So in the rain, it is a dead slot. You might find Psychic there, or Luster Purge. Just as a Psychic move, Luster Purge lowers Spadef. Yeah, that's useful for forcing more damage on the Lax and forcing it out. Like, -1 Lax takes like 50% from D-Claw, which is disgusting.
Is that like 100% Spadef drop?
It's 50%, which is still really high.
Yeah, that sounds cool. I might try that. And you obviously hit Heracross, right?
Mm-hmm. Coal Mine, you might see on that sort of set. Memento is an HO move. Think of it
so fun.
like...
That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, just like any other Memento user in any other gen, but the turn ends immediately, which is so good. So they don't even get to like click SD with their Groudon as you click Memento. No, you just get the free Memento, boom, send in your next guy. And there's nothing they can do to stop that. What else can they run? Well, that's basically it for that set, but the most recent innovation for this tier, it's since died down a little bit, but there was a time where this was spammed pretty hard, is Icy Wind lead Latios. I talked about this with Mewtwo. Before the advent of Spadef Hera, like taking over lead, Icy Wind Latios was like the lead to beat. So basically, you don't beat Mewtwo. Like Ice Beam to it KOs, D-Claw and Thunder don't do enough damage, and you can't Thunder get the para and fish like that. And switching into Mewtwo is a nightmare, especially for an HO build. So, what's the way around it? Well, I'm sure that someone has done this before, but I'll give full credit to Haste-Up because he's the first person I saw use this. You Icy Wind the Mewtwo and then hit it with the D-Claw on the next turn. And that's a kill. So yeah. It's an extremely potent lead because it threatens so much stuff at the same time. Because you're on HO, usually when you run this, you have like Memento or something in the last slot. So you're really just a lead that is applying a ton of pressure, getting damage on the Lax and stuff early. You're okay with trading HP because it's all about the momentum. And then you get a really juicy Memento, and then you set up like the rest of your team. And I think that's everything when it comes to Latios.
That still sounds like a good set. As long as you don't run into Heracross, like, that's a really good HO set.
If I were to use it now, I'd slap Psychic on it somewhere. I'm terrified.
Well, that would cover everything, wouldn't it? Almost.
Almost everything. You're still gonna be not great against the HO leads, like Smeargle and Glalie are gonna be problematic. Lead Lax is a thing. Specifically for stuff like this. Like people started using more lead Lax to cover this sort of matchup because the set really relies on you switching Latios or switching Snorlax into Latios to force that damage on it for something else on your team. But if you just lead Lax, then that doesn't really work anymore. The one thing that it consistently loses to is Banded Ho-Oh lead, which is a really strong lead.
That is a
So
good lead, and that would probably be good into Hera as well.
yeah, that's a really, really strong lead. Just really sucks in lead Ogre, which, you know what? There's not many things that will beat him. So, I didn't talk about Ogre sets, but there's like 6 of them. They're all a variation of like the same few set of moves, like Calm Mind, Thunder Wave, Water Move, Ice Beam, Thunder. Substitute are like the 6 moves it's gonna run, and figure out which ones it's using, and have fun.
That's pretty much it. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. You got Water Move, Ice Beam, Thunder, and something like Sub, Calm Mind, T-Wave, stuff like that. I don't know if in other Ubers formats you see like CM Rest, but I don't know if that's really a thing here.
It's a thing on fatter builds. I don't really like it because I don't like risking crits.
Too much Thunder running around.
Roar Ogre is a thing for other ogres, like Sub CM Ogre loses to Roar Ogre.
That's like a Suicune moment.
It's actually just like Suicune. That's funny.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say is that there's a lot of room to play around with Ogre EVs. So a defense-invested Kyogre is a much better meta and lax check. Yes, Ogre is a lax check, and you kind of have to use it to avoid trading your meta down too far on Rain. Or you can focus more on the trading with Latios side and run Spadef. I think both are perfectly valid. I use a lot of Spadef on my ogres because I like that Latios trading idea. But, you know, FizzDef is also like used for a reason.
Yeah.
And oh, go ahead.
I quite like the Salakberry set. I think you can often find a way to like either get Latios to hit you into range or just sub down and be a pretty nice little cleaner.
Something that I think's cool is if you CM versus Latios as it switches in, clicks Thunder. If you don't get paralyzed, you sub up. Now you're +1/+1/+1 versus Latios behind a substitute.
Yeah, that's a cool situation. It does hurt to risk the Thunder on something that's a bit. It's like kind of your end game clean thing. It's like you could 30%. You could just get effed. Still cool sometimes.
And the last Pokemon that we're gonna talk about today, who is he?
Groudon.
Oh boy. The big bad Dino Man. What is he? I have no idea.
He's a dinosaur. He's a dinosaur. He's extremely cool looking, isn't he?
Yeah,
I love his Gen 3 sprite. I love looking at him.
Yeah, he looks so angry.
He does. What does he do? He's got Swords Dance, EQ Rock Slide. He creates the sun.
Honestly, that's about all you need to say. That's Groudon. All right, that was a good video. See you guys later.
No, I mean, he's similar to Kyogre in the sense that you run the same pool of moves, but you can EV him in different ways, right? And you can also run Salak, as we said with Kyogre. You can run HP Ghost is a good option to hit Latios, who is obviously like the main switch in, and then you turn the tables against that sometimes, trade with it.
Yeah. So the difference between Groudon and Kyogre, they're both checked by Lottie, But the really big difference between the two in that regard is that Dawn has a way to just OHKO it, and Kyogre does not, which is plus 2 HP Ghost. This makes Dawn less checked by Lottie, more checked by other stuff, because no one's gonna just blindly throw away their Latios like that. It's a very common interaction to just trade like 80% Groudon for their Latios, which, depending on your team, could be worth it, could not be worth it, you know? But what he says, right? Groudon has a pretty limited pool of moves. SD, EQ, HP Ghost, Rock Slide, Substitute, T-Wave, Toxic, and Overheat. Those are about all the moves you're going to see on Groudon. You might see some people try Bulk Up. I haven't tried it.
This guy's alright.
Yeah, it's probably fine.
Like, Overheat's a frightening idea. All of a sudden the steals aren't so good.
Yeah, that's the real that's a Skarm killer. Like, if anyone ever tries to convince you that, you know, Skarmory is just 100% safe versus Groudon, just load Overheat, and you know, they'll have a real bad day. Like, Overheat HP Ghost is just so good into like Lottie, Skarm, no Ho-Oh. You kind of just get, you just get 2 kills.
And do you run Swords Dance last, I guess?
Mm-hmm.
That sounds
I don't know
great.
if that... Yeah. There's not a whole lot to say about Groudon. He's a very straightforward guy. You know, he's a stand-up guy. He's
a good bloke.
He's got a nice family going, you know.
He's simple, and yet he's an absolute force in the metagame. And Sun allows you to play a different way, run stuff like Ho-Oh, Exeggutor maybe. Enable certain archetypes, enable some fun stuff.
What I think is, in my experience, experimentation, is that Sun is a lot easier to be jank with than Rain, because Rain is a lot more rigid in how you have to keep dealing with Thunder, and like, how do you deal with like opposing Groudon, and like Groudon is just such a nice natural check to so many things, and not having to deal with Thunder all the time, it's really liberating in team building. Like,
yeah.
There was a team I built for UPL that was like Mewtwo, Celebi, Regice, and I could only really run that because, you know, I had a Groudon. You know, I don't have to switch my Celebi into Thunder over and over again. You know, I can check Ice Beam Lottie with Regice, and it doesn't have to take a Thunder because Sun's there. You know, you can do stuff like that with Sun. Whereas with Rain, I can't really do that because my Regice is going to eat Thunders, and that does a lot of damage. And it's HP Fire Regice to enable Ray in the back more, you know, deal with meta a little bit better. Like, it allows for a lot cleaner and more interesting offense strategies. Whereas Rain is the more consistent. It's the more, I don't want to say consistent like it wins more, because I think they're about even.
It's more classic, like, or something.
It's that's a great way to put it. It's the classic Rain offense. You know what you're getting with the Rain offense most of the time. There's not a whole lot of variation, but it doesn't need variation. It's solid. You know, Rain offense knows what it wants, and does it well. Alright,
well, I think that's a pretty good assessment of the entire Ubers metagame. Thank you very much for coming on and sharing your knowledge with the viewers at home. I do
Yeah, no
appreciate
problem,
it,
man.
and yeah, I'm really enjoying the format. I think it's quite, in a way, it's like every Ubers format's like this. It's a bit rigid in some of the team structures you got to run. Like you got to run Latios, you got to run checks to certain things. Usually you're chucking a Snorlax on the team, stuff like that. But at the same time, look at all this variety. We've got a lot of cool stuff propping up. We've got like Heracross optimizations taking over the metagame. You've got like Glalie. You got fun stuff like Golem. And when everything's so focused on a smaller pool of Pokemon, you can see something like Golem or Altaria have a little niche and have a purpose.
Yeah.
So I think it's cool. I think it's good for new players because it's pretty easy to get into, I think, and start building teams
Yeah.
because you can just chuck certain mons on and they'll be fine. But then at the same time, room for creativity, room to express yourself.
It's a simple tier. Like, the top is really well defined, and like each mon like does a thing. Like Latios, it was answered by these things, and that's how the following interaction goes. Like it's super simple in that way. It's very easy to watch a game and know what's going on because you're always seeing the same Pokemon. You're seeing familiar interactions, and that is what allows more niche stuff. Like something I dislike about Team Tour is that they're best of one in this tier, and a lot of the stuff down below is like kind of more suspect in the like every matchup. But look at all the stuff down there, right? There's so much usable stuff because so many interactions are able to be replicated. You can force certain things so often because so many Pokemon are used over and over and over again. And I think that's a really cool quality about this tier.
Absolutely. All right, I think we'll leave it at that. I think Mr. Ampharos wants to come and co-commentate with me in the future for the round 2 of the Ubers tournament. We've been chatting about that, and I think that's a great idea. I'll be commentating the round 1 set soon. Thanks for all the interest, guys. We've got a lot of entrants in the tournament. I think it's been going well. Hoping to bring more eyes to this format. And thanks for coming on.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.